This is another episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, celebrating 40-plus years on the fringe of show business. Stories, interviews, and comedy sets from the famous and not so famous. Here's your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another great episode of Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC. And this interview is something I've been looking forward to doing for a long time. One of my favorite acts ever to perform at Laughs Unlimited. Not only a terrific guy and a very, very successful comedy writer, and we'll get into that later, but one of the most weird and fun stand-up comics ever to play the club. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Peter Galkey. Wow, Peter. Woo! Wow. It is so great to get you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, it's great to be here, Scott. I haven't talked to you in 20 years.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of friend I am. But I've been following your life and career through our mutual comedy friends, and it's just so great to get you on the podcast finally. I have so much to share about your successful career, but let's go back to the beginnings. How did you end up getting into comedy?
Well, let's see. You know what? I'll just give you the brief synopsis, okay?
Well, just to interrupt, I mean, weren't you in college? You were like a professional gymnast, right?
Well, there are no real professional gymnasts unless they're like circus clowns or something. But I was a gymnast at UCLA, and then I got bored with it. I would always get bored with stuff, so I would just kind of quit and then do something else. And I started doing I just put together like a comedy, not like goof pratfalls and stuff, but just odd little things for a comedy floor exercise routine. And I did it, and I started doing it at the end, like the last person up on the apparatus on the floor exercise thing. And I would do that at big arenas and, competitions and stuff, because it was a good setup. Everybody thought I was a real, competitor, but then I wasn't. And it slowly evolved into some weird routine that would get huge applause and laughs and stuff.
Oh, how cool. What a fun way to take your talents. We should explain to the audience, you're a pretty tall, Langley guy. I mean, you don't see a lot of muscle, but you're really strong in those days.
Super strong. I was a little tall to be a gymnast. And so, it was probably, I'm still feeling that now in my shoulders and joints. But then, I decided a number of years after that to do to go on the Gong Show. A friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't you go on the Gong Show and we'll make some money?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but I'm going on the Gong Show." And he goes, "Yeah, and we'll make some money." And so, because I used to do these weird little things, dog impressions and stuff. And so I went to the Comedy Store because we decided, okay, well, that'd be a good place to try it because it's a place where people go and on stage and they can do goofy stuff. So I went to the Comedy Store, and I'd never seen a comedian really other than on TV. And so the first comics I ever saw, I was just in the back of the room, I saw was Lenny Schultz, who used to and he was like pouring cereal over his head and stuff on stage. And so I thought, well, I could do that, And so I put together a routine that week, and I went up I signed up the next week, and I went on and I did a wrestling match where I played 6 characters and all this weird, just jumping around stuff. And I got a standing ovation on my first time on stage.
Oh my gosh.
Which is actually the only standing ovation I ever got in my life.
Well, that's still encouraging.
Yes. And then I went and I did Mitzi. I went and did her comedy workshop. She wanted me to go in the comedy workshop. So I went in that, and Danny Moore and Robert Aguirre were helping people with their jokes, and I thought, well, I want to know, like, how do you hold a microphone, because I didn't know anything. And so then I went and made fun of the workshop the next week when they gave me another spot, and then Mitzi didn't like that. And so I wasn't really able to work the Comedy Store after that for a while.
You endeared yourself to the queen of comedy.
Yeah, right away. My second time on stage. And so then I didn't do comedy for about a year. I went to Europe for a while, and I came back, and I decided out of nothing else to do, I just decided to go and do these, like McCabe's Guitar Shop and these funky little places, and And I kind of got into it. It was fun, you know. You never really think about a career. Back then, it was really not a career unless you're on a TV show or something. So that's where I met all these guys like Fred Wolf and Bob Worley and Larry Jacobson and these other guys who were doing comedy, and they're still my friends to this day. And so, and that was that's kind of how I got into it, you know?
Well, that's interesting because you were really a entertaining gymnast, kind of. I mean, I've never seen a comedy gymnast, but I know you and I've seen you work, so I can picture it, and I think it would be hilarious. And then you tried stand up and didn't really have the best of luck. So now you a couple of years have gone by and you're playing with it again. Did you work with any improv groups? Did you go straight out as a soloist? How did that start?
Yeah, you know, I just really did all the little potluck stuff until sort of the comedy boom started. And I was actually taking the test to be a fireman, and I probably would have gotten on in Ventura. But I went out and I did the Comedy Haven in Palm Springs, and they were just starting up, and I did I opened out there or something, and I made $35, and I thought, wow, this is what I want to do. So I decided not to become a fireman because I could make $35 a night doing stand up comedy, which wasn't even sure what it was then. You know, it was just going up on stage and get a free beer and jump around, you know?
Oh, how funny. Yeah. Who needs medical insurance and a solid salary and job? I can do comedy.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. So then we just, I kind of really went out on my own. I didn't really hang out with any of these guys. I knew them, but I never really hung out with them. I worked my own little places like McCabe's Guitar Shop, and I would start opening for bands there. And there's a place called the White House over on Pico Boulevard where the Zucker Abram people did their show. They're big, you know, the guys that did Airplane. They had a live show that they did there.
Wow.
And so I kind of worked there a little bit. And then that was it. It just sort of kind of evolved as the comedy boom took off in the 80s.
You just rode the wave, yeah.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
So you started off very physical. Were you starting to write material? I mean, do you remember your first joke or bit?
You know, I did everything I did was sort of physical. Everything I started to do because I didn't read a book. I failed English all through school, and then I didn't read a book. Really, I read comic books, but I didn't read a real book until I was probably about 21 years old, and I couldn't write at all. Couldn't write a sentence because I didn't take a book home from school. I failed all my classes. I just went surfing mostly.
Yeah, and then you're a big-time surfer, being from the Southern California area. I guess I should have mentioned that in your intro. So gymnast, surfer. What's interesting is that you're saying that you didn't read or write, and yet what we're going to get to later in the conversation, you ended up making a great career as a comedy writer. So that's going to be an interesting transition question in a little bit. But right now I want to focus on your stand-up. So you were doing this. Do you know how you came to work for me? Or were you just referred by Bob?
You know, I think I was talking to Bob about this, and I think that Bob, I said, because of course everybody wanted to work any club that was running. And so I think Bob recommended that. He said, hey, if you like me, you'll like Pete. And so I think he had me out there as a middle, maybe an opener. I'm not even sure what I did, but I went out there and I did the Laughs in downtown Sacramento, which was really one of the best clubs in the country, probably.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was just great. You know, it was just the setup of the whole room was just so energized, you know, and it was good. And so, I think that's how I started through Bob Worley, got in there, and then just kept going back a couple times a year, you know.
Well,
and always fun.
It was a real treat for us. And again, it's going to be difficult to let the audience share in the excitement I have in talking with you about this, because I have such great memories and people try to picture in your mind. So I'm going to mention 3 quick bits, and I'd love you to tell me how they came about or whatever. But the first was one of the times you threw a rope down the middle aisle and you pretended to rappel into the audience, and you would grab a woman out of one of the chairs and then pretend to climb back up on stage like you're rope climbing with this girl in tow. And that's how you got a volunteer to do the next trick, which I always thought was amazing, which is your amazing levitation bit. And people in the audience, picture this tall Langley guy between two chairs, and he would have the volunteers pull the chairs out, and you would just boom, thump, you'd hear his body hit the ground. And then you would have the poor girl try to drag a hula hoop under you as you're announcing to the audience that I'm levitating. It's only centimeters off the ground, but I'm floating and it feels amazing. It's like being on a cloud. It was so funny to see that each and every night. And it was so funny. I always worried about you hurting your head and suing me, but it was hilarious. And then I have to mention, I think your premier piece, the piece that forever ties with the Peter Galke name. And I don't think I have any video of it, which is so sad, but Torso Man. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you'd have to see it to believe it. But again, really tall guy. And he had this t-shirt that went down to like his knees. He would pull his pants down almost to his knees, stuff a pillow into the back of his pants so it looked like a butt. And you would dance around as Torso Man. Had to be, hands down, one of the funniest physical bits I ever saw, Peter. So, I mean, thanks so much for all the laughter you brought me. But those bits in particular, in my memory, how did those come about for you?
Well, those were, I don't know. I don't remember actually how I came up with any of them, other than them just being sort of like, like anything, it just sort of pops in your head and you just put it together, And I think my friend played the piano when I was I kind of came up with that Torso Man thing when I was first getting started, and then it just sort of evolved. It was just goofing off really in my friend's living room, and just sort of came up with it. And I was singing songs and stuff at the time, and so it evolved into what it was,
Well, that's one of the great joys about the bit was that you were playing it straight. I mean, you were like, I'm going to sing a song and then dance around with your ass down around your knees. Did you have that shirt custom made?
Yeah. It was, I don't even know where did I get that made? I have no idea where somebody's, what I was doing? I was actually dating a clothes designer at the time. And so she sort of made me like 3 shirts like that. And I think I just used those until they were basically just in tatters. And then by then I stopped doing stand-up comedy. I think I dragged one out of a closet not long ago. It was in a box. But yeah, that was just sort of a moment of inspiration. And I had to do those I had like about 3 or 4 big bits that I would always do. And it was hard because I really wanted to move on to other things. And I was becoming more verbal in my show. And I much rather do that because it was just easier to do. But it was hard to do that.
Easier
it was hard to do that.
Yeah.
Because people wanted to see, like club owners, they always would get on my back for not doing certain things. And, everybody did. It was like, well, why didn't you do this?
Well,
I didn't
only because
sort of get in trouble for not doing it.
It was so funny and so memorable that I might have been one of those asshole owners saying, hey, what about Torso Man? I mean, he's hilarious. Now, that one didn't have any real physical risk, but the levitation, I'm not kidding, audience. I mean, he's in a stretched across a chair, and he would have the girls pull the chairs out, and you would just hear his head thump down on the ground. And that had to have taken a toll if you were doing that on a regular basis. I mean, at my club, that'd be 6 nights a week.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out ways to put padding in my clothes.
But it was funny. I mean, I know that there was some sacrifice, but both Torso Man, I was talking to somebody about you rappelling out into the audience and then grabbing a volunteer and rappelling and climbing back up. Did that only happen at my club, or was that part of your regular routine?
Oh, that's something I would do. I would sort of change things up a little bit with that stuff. And like there was one thing I used to do where I used to run with my fingers on the stool, and then I would start falling, and I'd fall. Yeah, I do the Olympics on a stool, and then I would start to fall through the air, and then I would run through the crowd. And then what I would usually do is run out the back door. I did this at a few places, and I was working in Santa Barbara at this bar and grill, and they had a big picture window out to the street. And it was a Saturday night, so the streets are packed with people. And one show, I fell through the audience, and I ran out the door, and people could see me out through the big picture window from the club. And then there was a limo out there parked, and I hopped in the limo. I didn't know who these guys were, and I said, "Hey, can you drive me around the block?" And they drove me around the block. And then I came back around, and the limo pulled up to the club again, and the door opens, and I ran out, and I ran back into the club.
Oh, the crowd must have been like...
and continued to sing. They went nuts. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's
because I just left. I just left in a limo. It was just hilarious that the guy actually let me in his limo and drove me around the block. But I think he was kind of watching the show from the outside a little bit, you know?
Oh, that is so funny, Peter. Well, you always were a fun guy to work with and very physical, a lot of physical humor, as you mentioned. You did start to add more dialogue to your act, and I think that, in fact, later after the interview, I'm going to share some of your material with the audience. What I wanted to get the basis is that you learned to write and perform stand-up comedy really after all the physical stuff, right?
Yeah. I think what I ended up actually, you know what I did is when I came up with jokes, like I worked with Dennis Miller and different people, and I would come up with a joke, and they'd think of it too. I wanted to be different, you know, and I didn't realize until a couple years in where I said, you know what, I should be actually not giving away material, and I should be doing this stuff myself. And so I started to add more verbal, like, you know, jokey material to my act. Well, but it took me a while to figure it out, you know?
Well, you ended up being a headliner for me, a very successful stand-up, physical, and as you said, more verbiage in your sets. I know that you did an evening at the Improv, and you appeared on Conan O'Brien's late night show. So you got a little television awareness as a stand-up comic. But you, at what year or at what point did you kind of start more writing than performing? Or how did that transition happen?
Well, I think as the stand-up career continued, it just got to be, I was doing it for too long, you know? And I remember being down at the San Diego Improv and standing in the back of the room, and I was going to go up to headline, and I'm going, you know, and I'm standing back there with this bag of props and sitting there, and I'm going, you know, I'm about to go up and do the same thing I've been doing for the last, 12 years or more. And it just dawned on me as it was so sort of surreal. Like what am I doing, you know?
Right. And you wanted a future. How long could you do it? And I know
exactly. It's just like,
you ended up being a punch-up guy and a writer. In fact, in the early 90s, didn't you do some work with Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, what happened is I started to write sketch stuff and shooting videos and things. And so then Fred Wolf actually was working at Saturday Night Live, and he said, hey, why don't you send in a couple of sketches and this week and see if and I'll put them through. I'll put them through the, I can get a sketch through for you to see if I'll run a sketch through because they would pick about maybe, 40 sketches a week they would write. And Fred would throw the sketch into the group, the batch. So I wrote a sketch.
And if it aired, you got paid something, right?
Yeah, if it aired, I would, maybe make some money. And so I sent it in, and it got on the show. And so they hired me on as a guest writer for a couple of weeks, and I went out there and worked as a guest writer, and then they liked me enough to hire me on for the season. And so that's how I got on Saturday Night Live, and I just flew out there and did that.
That's
But
really a cool story, though, that you kind of backdoored your way into that. And we should explain to the audience that Fred Wolf used to also be a stand-up comic, ended up really diving into comedy writing, and as Peter mentioned, was writing for Saturday Night Live and ended up doing several big movies, and he's still in the business and going strong. But you and Fred are tight friends, and you were already, even before this, weren't you kind of punching up some of his work and collaborating on a few things?
Yeah, we worked a little bit together just over the years on goofy little projects and stuff, and things, trying to sell a couple things, which we never did. But before that, I had never, like, I had to sort of like teach myself how to write, and then also how to type, and how to, so basically I had to teach myself how to write a sentence and a paragraph, and then slowly write a little video sketch, and then a sketch, and then a screenplay, So
Yeah.
it kind of evolved where I had to teach myself everything.
You never took any classes or courses?
No, I never took any classes, and didn't like reading books because I was lazy. So I just sort of taught myself by doing, just by writing the stuff and then looking at it myself and deciding whether it was good or not.
Well, that's pretty amazing, Peter. I mean, you're taking a guy that was a gymnast and then a very physical stand-up comic. He slowly develops into comedy writing for himself, and then he's collaborating with one of the most famous comedy writers out there, Fred Wolf. Ends up on Saturday Night Live contributing bits and stuff. I mean, that transition, even though I know it took 10 or 12, maybe 15 years, was all self-taught. And I just think that's so incredible that you were able to pull that off. And I know to you were just living your life and growing as you went. But looking back on it, it must seem pretty amazing.
Well, I think that the one thing that you sort of are running scared because, each step of the way you're doing something that you haven't done before, and you don't think you're very good at it. Like even to this day, I don't think I'm very good at anything I do. so I'm always like sort of like writing scared, which is actually, that's a good title for a book.
That would be.
Yeah, but it's like, you're never like anything that you're doing is just, oh God, this is awful, And so you have to work. I always felt like I had to work so much longer and harder, because friends of mine who are writers, collaborators and stuff, and partners, are just so much smarter, and they're so much better at the craft of writing than I am. And so I have to really, I feel like surrounded by such, good creative writers, I always feel like I have to really, work a lot harder than them in order to get something that is even close to being as good as what they do.
Yeah, but we as the audience need, this is a great example of how a lot of comedy entertainers, a lot of entertainers just in general, have a basic insecurity, and that some people quit and give up due to that insecurity, and others turn it into the driving force that takes them into a profession like stand-up comedy, and in your case, comedy writing. So let me see if this is how sucky you are. Let's see. You became a bit writer on Saturday Night Live for a season. That sounds horrible. Oh, wait a minute. You work with the Farley brothers on the movie Say It Isn't So. Then you were a writer on Black Knight. You helped write Ice Age Meltdown. And then you collaborated with Fred Wolf on Drunk Parents. And I imagine there's a whole lot of other projects. So for a guy that's self-taught and not a very good comedy writer, shit, you've done well.
I did okay, I wish I had done more and been smarter about, things.
Well,
but
Peter, this is a great history of talent that you have shared with the world in touching all these projects and being a part of all these things. And it all comes out of that crazy Pete Galke mind. I mean, you are different. I mean, you do approach comedy from a different view than a lot of people. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, thanks, Scott. You're starting to sound like Huell Hauser now.
Sorry. I'm so impressed that it's kind of shocking to me that you're so hard on yourself. And wait a minute, didn't you do your own movie, Strange Wilderness?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I wrote Strange Wilderness while I was working at Saturday Night Live. And then that's why I left. I left to shoot it, and I shot it with Fred and I starring in it. And but we never finished it. And it's actually a finished movie now, and it's great. But then we ended up, Fred and I decided to do the movie at Happy Madison later and reshoot it. And that maybe wasn't the best idea, but it was okay. And
well, it didn't do as well as I think it would. To be honest, I think if you and Fred were starring in it, for me personally, I think it might have ended up being a better movie. You did it with the Happy Madison production company, isn't that?
The original one. I love the original one, but nobody will probably ever see it, which is a shame because it's really great, you know. And you know, those are some of the mistakes you make along the way, and how you know, the breaks, you know, how you do things. Like if you don't do something a specific way, then and it doesn't work, it just takes one thing to go wrong, you know, and you can kind of, you know, it's
well, you know, as a business entrepreneur, there's lots of decisions that I regret that didn't go the way I thought. There's a lot of decisions I made that went well. And I think that when you look back in your life, it's a lot easier with 20/20 hindsight to say, well, if I'd done this or if I'd done that. But the reality of the moment is you're desperate to get your movie that you wrote out. And if you've got somebody like Happy Madison Productions behind it, give me the name of the actor that owns it. Adam Sandler, right? So you got an Adam Sandler production company behind your movie. I am sure that at a certain point you lost control and decisions were either put on you or told that this would be the way to go. And it just didn't work out the way you wanted. It wasn't like you made a mistake. It was just the direction that moment it took you. And it is too bad. Although if you have a private viewing of Strange Wilderness, I would love to see it. But anyway, the point
I'm going
is,
to actually. I'll let you know.
I'd love to do that.
There are a few people want to see it.
Oh, great. Well, we should do that, and we could do a podcast about it, because I did see the other one, and I could see some of your crazy genius behind it, but I also felt that the overall acting and production didn't come through the way I would have envisioned it with you and Fred there. But I'm also a slave to, you know, what show business in Hollywood is very powerful. I actually partnered with a guy to put together a television series for children, and teaching the arts of entertainment, juggling, magic, ventriloquism, and stuff. And I just got overran by Hollywood. I ended up losing a ton of money. The production never went anywhere. Half of it got stolen by my so-called partner. There were lawsuits. It was crazy. And I'm only telling the story because I thought I knew what I was doing. And the power of Hollywood and the people that control things in LA can just overrun you. You know, I was not prepared for it. I was literally the hick from out of town that was trying to get something done and just got squashed by the various powers of Hollywood as an industry. It is not an easy game to play, but you've been successful in other ways. I mean, you look at all the movies you've written on.
Yeah. That's no. I think that it's having a long career is, I think, like this is kind of rare, and that's just. I mean, I have nothing else to do, so I may as well just keep doing this.
Well, you've had a lot.
I'm not good at anything else.
Well, we're going to move on to your next project, but before we get to that, I mentioned like 4 quick movies that you worked on. There's probably others, but in your 20-plus year history as a comedy writer for television and movies, has there been something that, you know, really stood out that was fun and you're proud of?
You know, I would say, other than a few things I've written, there are a couple things I've written that have never been made that are the I'm most proud of, and that may never get made, but I love them, and I like the original Strange Wilderness that we did. I think that to me was like the highlight of fun and creativity for me, and then I think just the stuff that I'm doing right now to me is the best stuff I've ever done, and it's fun. And I don't know what'll happen with it, but but I always like whatever it is I'm working on. I think whatever I have that's lying around that I'm still working on is always, to me, it's the potential of it. I think that's great.
Tell us what you're working on right now, Peter.
I wrote a script with Kevin Heffernan, a friend of mine who was in the Broken Lizard group, and we wrote a script we wrote one called 12 Days of Christmas that Amazon is gonna make here, I think soon, maybe in the spring. And then I just have a couple of books. I sold a book with Jerry Swallow, who's a guy I wrote Ice Age with, and it's a children's novel, Christmas novel, and it's going to come out not for like a while. It's going to be a couple of years, I think, but with HarperCollins. It's sold with them.
Oh, and then, so wait a minute. You're going a little fast. So you're working on a project called The 12 Days of Christmas, but it'll come out in the spring. That's Hollywood.
No, it's going to get made. It's going to get shot.
Oh,
I think in the spring.
Then air next year, maybe.
Yeah, it'll probably air next fall, and then the following fall is when this Red Bag, it's a Christmas novel, is going to come out with HarperCollins.
It takes 2 years, huh?
Well, yeah, they were a little slow in getting some editing done, and so because it's been with COVID, it's so crazy, the whole publishing world.
Yeah,
and so so it's going to be a little later to come out, and that's going to be great. But it's really a shame that it's going to take so long. But that's okay. There's plenty of other things to do.
Right. And so wait, before we go on, I want to make sure the audience knows, mark your calendars, folks. Keep an eye out in the next 12 months for the 12 Days of Christmas, a TV special on which channel?
Oh, it's going to be a movie on Amazon.
Movie on Amazon. And then Red Bag is the name of the novel that's coming out in probably 2024? Yeah,
the title may change, but it's going to come out in 23. The fall of 23 that comes out.
All and right,
hopefully that'll have, that'll be great.
But you have a book out now, don't you, Peter?
Yeah, I just put it out. It's just a self-published book. I didn't want to try to take it to anybody to try to get a publisher or anything, because it's kind of a funky book, funky idea, so it would be a tough sell.
What's the name of it? But I just
wanted to do, it's called Peter Galke's Unseen America, and it's a tour of 15 and a half of the most unique cities in America, and it's a humor travel book.
Oh, that's a great concept, though. And by the way, don't be embarrassed about self-publishing. I happen to have a book coming out at the end of this week that is self-published on the 20 answers to being a stand-up comic, and it'll be on Amazon by the time this comes out. But I think self-publishing is the way to go these days if you want to control your market and your money from publishing. Obviously, there's bigger money when you're going through a huge publisher like you are with Red Bag, the Christmas book. But I think the Unseen America, is it going to be available through Amazon?
Yeah, it's up right now on Amazon, and the reason I liked doing this, I'm going to have volume 2 is going to come out in like 6 months, and then I'll have volume 3, and it'll focus just on
fun.
It's going to focus just on one city in America, and so it's great because I just wanted to sort of in a way make fun of the of books in general. Just the structure of a book, and also then also not have to really make any adjustment to what I wanted it to be. I just thought I would just come up with whatever I want to come up with and just throw it all in a book and see what it looks like, and then just put it up. And so that's what I did, and I think it's great. I really like it. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, just like any comedy product is. And so I think it's great. And it's been really fun putting it together. I've already written the second book. And so, it's really fun to figure out ways to tweak them and make them different. And, so it's great.
I want to interject and just let the audience know that, after being a comedy writer for TV and movies all these years, it had to have been frustrating. And yet it's part of the industry that you write something and then 10 other people put their twist on it or change it or do something different. You know, like you write a movie script, by the time it gets through the rewrites and then the director, what ends up on the screen is not what you wrote. And that's just the way Hollywood works, which is one thing you kind of have to expect, but it's also really frustrating. And I think it's kind of genius that, hey, I don't want to deal with that anymore. I'm going to write my book my way. Come hell or high water, we'll see how it does. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. And, I don't know anything I've never been good at making money. And so I think that that's not something I can focus on or I can even think about because I just don't know how to do it. And so what I can do though is just do something as a hobby and just do what I want to do with it. That's why I've always loved doing little projects, no matter what they are, where it's just, I'm just doing what I want to do. And if you have to actually think about trying to make money with something like that, then you probably shouldn't do it. But, that's the kind of stuff. That's why I like the original Strange Wilderness too, is because it was just really just doing something exactly the way you want to do it at the time. And then those are the things that you're most proud of, I think, because anything else I've done has always been tweaked and tinkered with in other ways by a lot of people, because this is a collaborative business we're in. There's hundreds of people involved in putting things together. And so, you can't really hang on to, control of anything like that. You just have to let it go and realize what it is.
Right. But, it's the way the industry works. But doing a self-published book your way with your writing without a third party getting involved gives you that personal touch. Your comedy genius getting out there. So, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is several weeks before Christmas. So you want that unique Christmas gift, go to Amazon and Google either Peter Galkey or the book Unseen America. Makes a great gift. And I just think that's an amazing story, starting off as a gymnast at UCLA to being a published author is just such a great last 40 or so years, Peter. And I know that you're a little hard on yourself, but I'm proud of you, and I think you've done some amazing things.
Me too.
Good. I want to hear that positive energy. All right. Well, thanks for doing the interview, Peter. Ladies and gentlemen, keep an eye out for 12 Days of Christmas, the novel Red Bag in a couple of years. Right now, go to Amazon and get Unseen America.
Peter Galkey's Unseen America. I think there's a couple of things named Unseen America.
So, okay, they have to say Peter Galkey's Unseen America. That's important to point out. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
And right now, I have a little bit of stand-up comedy we recorded from back in the 80s, and I'm going to share that with the audience. But
can't wait to hear that.
I want to say thanks so much for doing this interview. Congratulations on all your success and all the movies you've mentioned I've seen, and I didn't even know that you had touched some of them, so it's really exciting for me to get this opportunity to work with you again, and hopefully we'll be able to do something again soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Galkey, thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Scott. Good talking to you.
Here comes some stand-up comedy by the one and only Peter Galkey. Ladies and gentlemen, before I air this quick recording of Peter Galkey on stage, let me remind you, it's very physical. It includes the levitation bit and a couple other things. So use your imagination. Here we go. Enjoy.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm very popular tonight. My name's Peter Galke, and I'm popular. I've been working out, too. I don't know if you guys can tell. The size of that thing. I want this to get that big. It was hard as a rock. I can eat anything and not gain weight. Thank you. See, what I do is before I eat a huge meal, I swallow a hefty trash can liner. When I'm through eating, I just yank that thing out of there. You can't gain weight like that. I'm a genius. I went skydiving last week. It was great. They took up that airplane preparing for my jump. About 70,000 feet. Is that too high? I was in the space shuttle. They loved me up there. On re-entry, my pants burst into flames. It was so intense. By the time I hit the ground, all that was left of me was my finger. Boy, those are the days. It was great. I was falling faster than normal because I had a chair strapped to my chest. I knew it was really going to hurt when I landed, too, because I noticed the chair was missing those little rubber feet on the bottom of the legs. Actually, my parachute didn't even open. But I was okay, because I landed right here. See that spring action? That saved my life. I'm very grateful for that. I'm sucking up hard now. I am sucking hard! Except for slugs. We have a big problem with slugs here because it's so damp outside. Every time I wake up in the morning, I come out of the place, I have big honking slugs right in the driveway. Big, fat, fist-sized slugs just lumbering up the driveway. You ever a big African slug or something? They just lumber up real slow. Can't even back my car because the back wheel hits them. Just gotta just pick them up and just get rid of them. Just throw them. They're so heavy that when they hit the pavement, they go, ugh. I have a girlfriend. I don't like her, though. She bugs me. Just never stops talking. Just she doesn't listen to anything I say anymore. You know, her ears have actually evolved. Right at the side of her head, it's all smooth right here because she doesn't use them anymore. Just you know, she just to make her mouth more efficient, her head's starting to slope back right here. It's all smooth. Part of her brain that works speech is expanding up the side of her head like a balloon. Just you know, she can't close her mouth because on her lips she's got those little rubber things like say an elevator door. It's just wah 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 wah. Thank you. I love that. Yeah. Went to the doctor last week. Had my sperm count taken. Pretty disappointed. It was 1. But it's this big. Nothing can stop that thing. Just gotta find a way to get it out. You know, my one ambition in life is to live forever. And you know what? So far, so good! Yeah, thank you! Thank you! And now, right now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to perform for you Peter Galke's famous levitation routine. Come on, let's hear it for me! Thank you, thank you! Thank you! Oh, shut up! Okay, and now I'd like to bring up the volunteer that I picked earlier this evening. Please, come on up here. Let's hear it for her. Come on! There she is. Come on, let's hear it for her. Thank you. Thank you. Right here. Thank you. Okay, now, what I'd like to do is stand behind this chair right here, if you will. Right behind here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now, at the count of 3, I want you to pull the chair out from underneath my head. Begin the countdown. 3, 2, 1. All right, now, I want you to move towards the other chair. Quickly now, I can't hold this much longer. I want you to pull the chair out from underneath my feet. At the count of 3. Begin the countdown. 3, 2, 1. I am now levitating just a little bit off the ground. I am floating in air. God, it feels good. And now quickly pick up the hoop behind me, and to prove that I am not being held up by cables or wires, I want you to run the hoop underneath my body from head to toe. Quickly now. All the way, quickly. No, like a hoop. There you go. Good. Okay, all the way. Quickly now. Stand up and pull. Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Let's hear it for it. Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Good everybody. Very popular. Thank you!
That was Peter Galkey live on stage. Like I said, a strange but very entertaining comedian, and he's gone on to fame and fortune as a comedy writer for TV and movies. And be sure to check out his book for the Christmas holidays, Peter Galkey's Unseen America. All right, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another great show. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Stand Up Comedy, Your Host and MC. For information on the show, merchandise, and our sponsors, or to send comments to Scott, visit our website at www.standupyourhostandmc.com. Look for more episodes soon and enjoy the world of stand-up comedy. Visit a comedy showroom near you.